Let me tell you a little bit about Open Mouth. I'm Molly Best Rector. I'm the director of Open Mouth Reading Series. With me here tonight from my team, actually my whole team is here. Peter Mason, dressed up as a pirate over there, is our development director. Gwendolyn Ann Hill Moroner, over here as Boba Fett, is our education director and writes all of our grants and also just generally makes things run. Along with Nani Versan, dressed up as her high school self. Who does all of our communications and generally tells us to get our shit together. And then Hiba Tahir over here is just like generally as Halloween, and does all of our social media and lots of strategy. So thank you all for being here. I'm telling you that because if there's anything you need throughout the night, those are the people who you can go to ask a question. We are happy to answer anything, make anything available to you that you need. So we're a nonprofit literary organization based in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We host a poetry reading and workshop every month with visiting writers. And we also host an annual retreat in June and festival in the fall, usually around Halloween. Hello, here you are. Our goal is to bring local poets and people who love poetry in contact with nationally touring poets to create a greater community through writing outside of the academic environment. So at each of our readings, we have an opening round of around 10 or so community readers who read a single poem each in rapid succession. Tonight, because it's our festival and we have more features than usual, we just have one community poet, the wonderful Rome Hernández Morgan, who's going to be sharing some of her amazing poems. But normally, you know, if you write poems or even if you just love poems and you want to read one in our opening round, you're invited to do that. We invite people to read poems that aren't their own as well, because we feel that poetry is an ongoing conversation. You can get information about our future events on our website. We'll post a link in the chat. And you can also sign up for our newsletter in case you want to be informed next time we are doing something. We also post on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We pay all of our featured readers, and we're also taking steps to increase accessibility permanently by continuing to post reading and workshop content online and on our Patreon account. And by providing captioning services and access copies at workshops and readings and ASL interpretation at readings. If you need the ASL interpreter, Emily Phipps is here. She has ASL interpreter in her bio, and we'd also be happy to point you to her. Thank you, Emily, for being here. You can read more about what we're doing to increase accessibility on our website. And I'm also just going to read you a brief access statement before we get started. So I'll be emceeing the event. What I'm going to do is read everybody's bio just really quickly. Normally, I might say a little bit more about each poet, but because we have so many poets tonight, we want to, again, like protect you from Zoom fatigue. So I'll just be reading their bios, introducing them, and letting them read their work. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're doing to increase access first, then we'll go straight into that. So we've been working to make our programs more accessible, both in this new online format and when we're able to have in-person readings and workshops again. So we're taking the step of providing captioning. If you need captioning, you can click in the top left-hand corner of your screen. There's a thing that says otter.ai live notes, and then you can read along. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's the best one that we've been able to find, and we've tried a few. So that kind of runs live alongside. We're also collecting and offering visual aid materials, which you can find in the chat. Gwen will be posting those, and we'll post them a couple of times in case you missed it the first time. And we've also completed a course with an accessibility consultant to better understand and apply the principles of accessible design. So in the near future, look for an updated website that's accessible for people with all kinds of needs for access. We're also just really excited about the potential for access that this online format opens up. Because of it, we're able to reach people who might not otherwise be able to make our events because of everything from distance to immune issues to physical access challenges. We've actually, at our readings, had a couple of people attend from Nigeria, which is amazing. And certainly wouldn't happen if we were just doing in-person events in Fayetteville. So even when we do return to an in-person format, which we're not going to do until there's a vaccine for COVID, we're working to ensure that we only work with accessible spaces. And we now plan to make sure all of our readings and workshops are simultaneously cast online. And workshops are going to be made available on our YouTube channel for 1 month, and thereafter they'll be on our Patreon for a small fee. So here's what you can do to help us ensure that this space is accessible tonight. The first, and I know everybody's already doing this, so thank you, is to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to help cut down on distractions and background noise. Also, please share your pronouns by editing your name to include them. And again, if you missed the statement about how to do that, just message me or Gwen or Pete and we'll tell you how to do it. Please give a content warning if what you're about to share might cause someone discomfort. When the ASL interpreter is present, it's easier to focus on her work if people mute their camera or turn off their cameras. So not absolutely a requirement, but it does help focus attention. And then remember that this is your space to use respectfully as you need. So you're free to turn off your camera, use the chat function, make requests, get up and leave the room if you need to, eat something, whatever you want to do. This is your space. As long as you're being respectful, we're just glad to have you here. And then again, look for links to access copies in the chat. And then we also are going to link for you a feedback form for our accessibility efforts. And we would love to hear if you utilize those services, what you think of them, and if there's any way that we could improve. So thank you for being here. We're really excited to have these wonderful poets tonight. And again, please do use the chat, because one of the things we really miss about being together in person is the opportunity to just have that sense of community, have that sense that everybody's having one big conversation and one big experience together. So if you love something, like, please feel free to react to it. Please feel free to have a side chat. We really want you to do that. So that's my statement about access. I'm really excited to have you here tonight. I tried to dress up in a costume using things from my yard. I don't know what I am, some kind of green witch. If you have a costume on, I want to see it. So without further ado, into the poems. Our first poet tonight is Rome Hernández Morgan, who is a Mexican-American queer poet, writer, and translator. She is currently an MFA candidate in poetry at the University of Arkansas, where she is a Walton Fellow, and has been the recipient of a scholarship to the Sewanee Writers Workshop. Her writing has appeared in or is forthcoming from Prairie Schooner, Blackbird, New Ohio Review, and the Journal, and you can follow along with her at the access document in the chat. Romy, so glad to have you here. Please join us.
Thank you, Molly. Marriage spell. At night, the bayous sigh their way to sea, that murky water and the trash it tows. Oil floats while paper ghosts swim below, like little moon-caught fish. My love, to this, your swampland city, you carried me. My bridal dress, the woven mesh of trawler net and Spanish moss that loops the aging oak. Beneath pink clouds we watch lizards drop in sudden showers from our roof. As if we needed further evidence, we too had been bewitched by some befuddled spirit, some humid, hopeful spell. Yet rigs keep on taking long, dark pools from the ocean floor. And I would grow long roots, my dear, in knotted mangrove isles, so we might moor this shifting land and weather any storm. Sister drives the Charleston witching hour. Be it strobed or wrapped in sheets, sister knows the witching hour, the night shift, the twisting streets. Pregnant, she works intake, greets patients growing tenser by the hour, peels and clips a stack of empty sheets. It's the best place I could be, she repeats. The child could come at any hour, or a gunshot victim off the twisting streets. Sister's good at keeping calm, but her feet do swell, and she wishes at this hour girlhood weren't as thin as tattered sheets. She supposes it's what marshes feel, deep in the rising sea, a tired, fertile power that rolls into the storm-strobed streets. Sunrise casts its glow in ripe peach pleats, and sister drives the witching hour, her turns tight as crisply folded sheets, deep in thought as her child twists to sleep. Last poem. Basic witches. Witches on brooms, witches on bikes, witches flying standby, witches reading true crime on the flight, witches walking hellhounds, witches scooping up the big poops, witches forgetting trash day, witches watering houseplants, witches watching UFC, witches brewing strong, sweet tea, witches singing badly, playing ukulele, witches hosting poker night, witches winning big, witches getting that good sleep, that late night infomercial sleep, that cried yourself to sleep, sleep, that danced at midnight with your coven sleep, that drooling on your pillow sleep, that charms the amber moon and calls upon a brand new day to cast its promise soon. Thank you.
I love Rome's use of form. I don't know how y'all feel, but I'm just so taken with it. It's like funny and beautiful, which is just the goal, right? So our next poet tonight is Jihyun Yun, who we're so grateful to have with us. She's a Korean American poet from the San Francisco Bay Area, a winner of the Prairie Schooner Book Prize in Poetry. Her debut collection, Some Are Always Hungry, was published by the University of Nebraska Press in September 2020. A Fulbright Research Grant recipient, she received degrees from UC Davis and New York University, and she currently lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we'll link to her website and to her book in the chat, so please check out her poems. Hi, Jihyun, thanks for being here.
Hi, Molly. Thank you so much, first of all, to the Open Mouth crew for having me, and of course, everybody for coming. And thank you, Remy, for those incredible poems. And I'm just so honored to be reading with everybody today who I've been a huge fan of for a long time. Just going to read a few poems. This first poem is called Fish Head Soup. Fish head soup. Remember this. Fish head soup should be eaten on the hottest summer day. Pungent and spicy, it will make you sweat, keep you cool. Boil it in a big pot with peppers and leeks and minari leaves. Eat it cross-legged out on the weathered wooden porch like we did. There is little of the head which cannot be eaten. Pull away the cheeks. The meat there is tender and sweet. The eyes should be shared. Suck the skin off sheets of cartilage, and when picking flesh off the jaw, don't snag your thumb on their teeth. Harmony sorts bones on the splayed newspapers. There's been another shooting in Oakland, and she lays the prickly spines across obituaries. This is how we go, she says, as she points at the picked clean faces, the shucked out sockets. I apologize. I should have a book on hand, but I'm reading off of loose papers because I lack foresight. This next poem is called The Leaving Season. It's a longer poem from my book, and I do want to give a content warning. It's about sexual assault. The Leaving Season. 1. All winter we slept with backs pressed against one another. I let him fuck me, regret, then let it happen again. Even to myself, I had no answer. I hated how he smoked in bed, hated the weakness he assumed I'd inherited from my sex. I said nothing all season. Once we went to Sonyo Beach. He meant to impress me with a boulder in the shape of a celestial woman mourning, praying to go home to her sisters, but to me, really just looked like a rock. I was more taken by the ladies at the base of her slate dress, scraping oysters the size of thimbles into Ziploc bags. With the tides pulled back, the beach was pockmarked. Barnacles and shellfish, like so many opened eyes, tanning themselves to death in December sun. Once I was dubiously alive. They're harvesting oysters because they're going to eat them, he explained, to which I thought, no shit, but said nothing. What keeps me so afraid of wounding a man? Later, tangled up in seaweed, we unearthed the jawbone of some beast picked clean of meat. Its weathered teeth muscled around nothing. A few meters inland, we found its sea-swelled face, as if water knowingly freed it of its visage. I knew it was a boat offering, a prayer for maritime safety. What other reason would an animal head have to wander onto shore? But all I could think of was a dream I once had of a woman with a pig's head walking into the water. What sweetness, to enter the sea, to bless nothing but your own safe passage. I looked down at what washed up from the stream, porous and neat against the green of dashed soju bottles. Wire hair whitening with sun and not yet taken by rot, the skull and face smiled separately. 2. As a suckling, I was led to a prone teat, fed apple core and flesh, scraped from the carcass of other animals like me. Forgive my indiscretion with feed, the wild hunger that drove me to partake of the meat I would one day become. I spent my days rubbing my snout against the cage, hating my mottled pink body for its deliciousness. To be desired is rarely a good thing. When I was old enough to breed, my failure to conceive earned me a bolt between the eyes. I died without fanfare, like so. My body they halved and sent away to be drained, salted, and swung from hooks at the market. My hooves went elsewhere, were braised with spice and rice liquor to an unctuous toffee brown. All that sweet warm fat glistening under heat lamps, hawked with peppers and brine shrimp. It's strange to know this world I loved loves me best dismembered. I watch them use me with great dispassion. Why blame a human for his nature, which at its core is merely hunger? Why miss the body for what it can endure? At some point, I lost track of my head, felt it hoisted aboard some gleaming new boat that hastened it towards water, all grease and alabaster. The sun, resting baldly across my scalp, untethered some live wire longing in me. My head, my harrowing, my little life ended abruptly. I followed the last remnants of me to the open expanse of the sea. They blessed and implored my head for safety before giving it to water. The storm above unbraided leisurely. 3. I saw myself unbraided, apex and heat as witness from above. Fear sweetens the meat and so explains the violence before every partaking. I was just a girl in every sense, but pressed no charges. On your pull-out sofa bed, you slept affrontingly sound. Roses on your desk, their wilting, beer-doused heads. Roses pressed between chapters of your girlfriend's Hermann Hesse. It shouldn't matter how I got there, and yet, did you walk through the door on your own 2 feet? Did you kiss them first besides the bonfire's unhusked heat? Yes, yes. Still drunk, I crawled to your palm-smeared mirror, pushed the sorrows of young Werther from where it rests, pulled off my animal face, and forced myself to look. 4. Water fills every excavated cavity. Buoyant with blubber and blood, it sinks slow. Carp nibble gratefully at its cheek. Cuttlefish streak by with their curious pale meat. For a while, it resists rot. It was wrong to reject the body, to think it wouldn't miss it. The water eases between sinew and skull, lifting away until face and bone hurtle toward shore, divorced of each other for the lovers to find. Do not be tricked. None of this means shit. Why do we wish to force narrative after every end? This is only the poet's projection. The severed head misses nothing. The girl doesn't leave. The boat continues to sail safely. As for the pig, she remains dead, having met her earthly purposes, to be, to feed, to serve as human offering. Did you really expect otherwise? She never enters the ocean in search of herself. There is no tether, no heroic ghostly hunt. 5. In death's adjacent room, let me live inside this girlhood. He presses his thumb against my pulse, and I wake beside the ocean. There is no one around except the ladies pulling oysters from the rock, kaleidoscope of faces and bodies. I know I am lucky to be living. In another life, I've washed up on shore, halved and picked at by carp. Above, the sky blots itself antiseptic pink. I think the worst must be finished. Whether I am right, don't tell me, don't tell me. No ringlet of bruise, no animal face. The waters salt me and I leave it barefoot. I leave you, seasons of still tongues, of roses beside crushed beer cans. I leave you white sand and scraped knees. I leave this myth in which I am pig, whose death is empty allegory. I leave. At the end of this story, I walk into the sea and it chooses not to drown me. Just 2 shorter poems left now. I like to read the longer poem because otherwise in 15 minutes I could fully finish my entire manuscript. They're all short poems. This one is called Thirst. It's for my mother. Thirst. Mornings of marrow and oolong oiled mother of pearl from too much milk. This is how we heal. Fingers sugar tacky, we eat the day cloudless, watch mayflies thrust upwards to a blue, the hue of thirst. Your lip, a crushed berry, spills its wet cerise. You say, even this can be inherited, by which you mean be strong. Azalea and baby's breath drop petals on the nightstand like flies' eggs. Through your bent nose, your voice, mosquitoes as you sing. Man is ship, woman is harbor. Day by day, I gaze towards the sea, but we are landlocked beasts. Mother, I too envy any selfish thing. Thank you everyone for holding by with me. This is the last poem. My collection is kind of structured around a bunch of recipe poems, and this one is a reverse recipe poem. Reversal. Rescind the palm dash of scallion, the final blessings of ground perilla seeds and sesame leaf. Unshred the crown daisy. Take the soup off the flame and kill the flame. Unsinge the bottom of the pot until your face reflects in its gunmetal glint. De-Korean the broth. Vacate its ginger and onion and garlic, its rice wine and red swelter. Restore the ground chili flakes to their unshorn forms and hang the bloodless red fruit back up in their perennials. Unwater the perennials. Vines retreating to the crease of their seeds, commit yourself to this unharvest, to the joy of unmaking. Let the soup unthicken, the starch pull back into the cells of their russets. Fish the russets out from the pork spine cages and lay them to rest back into the earth. Now address the spines. Pick them out from the pot and lay them to grow raw across a cutting board's face. Watch it pull blood back into itself, replenish its own marrow. Love, you'll need your shoes for this. Leave the kitchen. Seek the sow and unslaughter her. But if you find the pig dismembered and cannot bear it, grant yourself permission to not tend to her rememberment. Remember, just because you're a daughter doesn't mean you must mend. Instead, let her tend to herself, her unthatched belly calling for a return of lost things, bone, honeycomb maw, her clumsy animal heart until she speaks. Dear reader, I so want to survive this. Please leave me whole into another season so I may dare begin again. Thank you so much, everyone.
Dear reader, I so want to survive this. I mean, thank you. I also noted a line. Let me look at it real quick. Drop petals on the nightstand like flies' eggs. And appropriately following that line, we have with us tonight a wonderful poet dressed as a fly. So I'm going to invite Benjamin Garcia to step up and join us. Benjamin Garcia's first collection, Thrown in the Throat, which came out this year from Milkweed Editions, and was selected by Kazim Ali for the 2019 National Poetry Series. He works as a sexual health and harm reduction educator throughout the Finger Lakes region of New York. His poems have recently appeared or are forthcoming in Agni, American Poetry Review, Kenyon Review, Lit Hub, and New England Review. And we'll link to his website in the chat. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Benjamin.
Hi, and thanks for having me. This is wonderful. I'm honored to be reading with folks. I am dressed as a fly. I'm gonna put the fly outfit aside just for this reading. And I wanted to give a content warning because all of my poems will have very strong language, some of it graphic or sexual, sometimes with slurs. Boy, this is hard to get off. So just wanted to give that warning. There's just a lot of strong language. That's part of what I'm trying to do with this book, is reclaiming language and sort of exploring how it's used either as a tool of sort of keeping people down or of trying to use it as a tool of liberation. They also will be read kind of fast because they were designed to sort of steamroll you the way that language can sometimes do. So if you want to follow along because I read them quickly, please do. The language in question. The language in question is criminal. Like a shark, it ate a license plate, and it ate the shark. Well, the fins it poached anyway. It gorges like a gorge, the river flowing like a scarf some magician just keeps pulling. It ate away the deposits of clay. Like a sinkhole, the language in question ate a chateau and the family inside. It pickpockets the stranger with gusto. It barters with bards, pays in counterfeit. Money is no object. The tongue desires, the language acquires. The language in question likes conquest, moves west because it hungers like locusts. Like the larvae of the caddisfly, this tongue makes a shell of what it pilfered. It's the apex predator in the food pyramid. It ransacked the pyramids, tours the spoils of theft, the country of origin, but only on loan. A paper wasp that makes its home from what it chewed and spat back out of your own, and it stings you if you get too close, stung. I told you the language in question is the S-shaped tongue of the anteater, the so-called worm tongue. It warms itself at the fire it made from other people's scrolls, codices, tomes. It entombs and embalms and lights bombs. The language in question thinks it's Billy the Kid. The language in question is shooting up the saloon. The language in question is shooting up meth, dope, coke. Whatever's on hand is the drug of choice. The language in question is corrupt. It's poison and salve, savage and sage. It's honeysuckle and bitter oleander. Only a lawyer could make sense of it and sell it to the highest bidder. Like a snake that ate a parrot whole, spits out the bright feathers. Without a bird to hold them together, that's what it's like when the accent doesn't even come close. The language gets twisted, the tongue gets tired. I bet it's kinky and likes to be tied, likes every bit of itself bit. This tongue bids adieu, hold in the mouth. Adios, amigos. So this next one is Ode to the Corpse Flower. It's a series in the book. It uses the language of flowers, which is something that, in Victorian times, if you wanted to tell someone you like them, you could send them a bouquet with a certain arrangement. If you wanted to reply like, no thanks, you could send back another bouquet that then they could decipher. And then a corpse flower is just this really giant, monstrous flower that smells like a dead body, and it does that on purpose and doesn't care if we like it or not. Ode to the Corpse Flower. In the language of flowers, I am the one who says, fuck you. I won't be anyone's nosegay. This Mary is her own talking bouquet. Never let a man speak for you or call you what he wants. I learned that the hard way. Amorphophallus titanum. It sure sounds pretty in a dead tongue, except it's Latin for big ugly dick. I mean, I am. But what an asshole scientist. I prefer to think of myself, and this may sound vain, as a goddess, cadaver dressed in drag, my stage name, Versace Medusa, part Lilith, part Calla Lily. Keep your heteronormative birds and bees. Give me the necrophiliacs, the freaks, the meat-eating beetle and flesh fly. There I go again, allies, getting all hot and bothered, being vulgar. Vulgar meaning common, as when something is below you, like a girl forbidden to say fuck. It makes a woman sound so common. Oh, come on. That's all you expect from a flower, to be likable. But to keep it raw and 100 is to be abhorred. Fine, but even the haters will pay to hold their nose at a halftime show. They'll claim they are beyond Beyonce, sick of Selena, yet they can't look away from the live cam. No one wants to miss the showgirl as she breaks through the cake, unhooks her lingerie, La Virgen de Guadalupe with the twist of Santa Muerte. What in the hell is she wearing? Glad you ask. Death is the new Christian Dior, the latest Chanel, his corpse smell. I am the weak old ham hock whore of horticulture. I bring the hothouse haute couture, and I always come in last place. Dressed to the nines, I get what I want, which is to be the 10th muse, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, little Evita de Buenos Aires, screwing and screwing over los descamisados on my rainbow tour. Fuck Whitman, fuck Pound, give me Emily D. Speaking of which, have I ever told you, Daddy? Only sun gods get me hard. You want it, I got it. Let me show you how a chola really leans. Mother Nature may wear floral, but I ain't your mama. I thirst like Betty Boop at Peacock, Marilyn Monroe blowing in an air vent. Say Malinche, say Truvada whore, give me more. I thrive in shade. My throat is my throne, so queen me, bitch. So they're a mouthful. They can be exhausting to read. This next one is another ode. This is Ode to the Peacock, and it uses the language of handkerchiefs, which was basically this code that gay men developed to sort of let people know, other gay men know what they were into, what kinks, whether they were compatible, whether they were top or bottom, or, so it uses that, the language of handkerchiefs. Ode to the Peacock. Oh, and the handkerchiefs were worn like in the back of your pants. So if you wore it on one side of the back pocket, it would mean one thing. If you wore it on the other side of the back pocket, but you had these handkerchiefs hanging off your behind. So, ode to the peacock. In the language of handkerchiefs, there's really nothing I don't want. I'm glad to be paid in gold when the devil beats his you know what. If you think it's indecent for a body to fan open iridescent, gird your gaze, because honey, I'm throwing up my kerchief like a flare gun shot. Watch me unskirt a frosted muffin, top me with sprinkles. I'm flashing red, yellow, green, go. You're the stallion and I'm the mare. Smear my queer into the mirror. Now you are the mare and I am the stale smell in the restroom stall, and you're an all-you-can-eat buffet. Let me just say, your eyes are the most beautiful, urinal cake blue. Blue as in the past tense of blow, blow as in Coke, even though you suck it up, buttercup and butterscotch. A man named Scott wants his scotch, filthy gorgeous. Or maybe that's a martini. A man named Martin, a man named who knows what. Who knows what it means to pluck roses from my chest using just his teeth. And sometimes, yes, blood, which is thicker than water. I know something thicker. It's called incest, when a nephew makes his uncle, say pee, say cock. Katy Perry sings the song, let me see your peacock cock. Behold my royal flesh stamped with eyes. Don't tiptoe in your slippers, stomp on eggs, shells, balloons. Lick my boots until I see myself being spit on like you're squelching the inferno. Sometimes fire, sometimes feathers. Elect a whip or bind me blind in leather. Pink polka dot and seafoam green. If you don't already know, let me show you what it means for a boy to be a boy to be. When hard in my harness, you'd best call me daddy, but don't call any of this dirty, not unless the person doing it wants it. Then it's smut. Wipe the rosary from my brow. Use the fabric pouring from your lips. So they're not all quite as in your face. This one's a little bit slower moving. And this actually might be the last one because I don't know that I have time for the other one. So this might be the ending poem. The Great Glass Closet. This is not a metaphor. When I say that I lived in the closet, it's because I lived in the closet. You might too if you shared a one-bedroom apartment with 11 other people and a pet. Mother, stepfather, brother, uncle, aunt, cousin, dog. Then there's me, the surplus. You could have called our closet a walk-in closet in the sense that a child's body could walk in. Mine did, and I called it home. It was comfortable enough if you were willing to lie. I was. I lived in a confession booth, listening to my own secrets, making my own sentences. Confession. My uncle was different in a way you could see. I was different in a way you could see. Only if you were looking. If you were looking, I could see. What I mean is that my uncle walked on crutches, so he didn't cross the border by foot. He climbed into the trunk of a car, which is a kind of closet. I was like my uncle, and I was not like my uncle. He walked on crutches, and I didn't. Confession. During prayers, I don't close my eyes. Nobody knows this, except the other people who don't close their eyes. A life in the closet is a life that's closed. So I opened what I could. Books. I was Harry Potter, the boy who lived, reading about the boy who lived. I had no owl, no hat, no wand. I couldn't cast a spell, and I couldn't spell. But I could see the low in owl. I could pull the hat out of that, and in the word wand, find another hidden and. Reading X-Men, I wanted to be Storm so that I could end the famine in my family's village, looking like a badass bitch queen goddess doing it. I knew this was impossible, because I wasn't claustrophobic enough. I could never be Storm. I survived too many storms behind a closet door, and I could never change my name to Storm, which at its core contains an or, as in either or, as in Aurora Monroe, Storm's birth name. You must choose, pink or blue, boy or girl, left or right, right or wrong, truth or lie, truth or dare. Truth. Even writing this, I thought that feminine shared an A with famine. Feminine. Dare. Hunger for errors. Find another place to stick a man inside. Reading, I learned the difference between cloth and clothe. Also the difference between close, meaning to shut, and close, meaning almost there. Sometimes there's no difference between the past and present, as in to read and to have read. Sometimes there's no difference between the past and present, except for the surroundings. You can call this context, or you can call this what it is, privilege. Not living in the closet is what people like me did on TV. But I wasn't like the people on TV, so I lived in the closet. In Fun Home, when Allison and her father see a woman wearing men's clothes and sporting a man's haircut, she says, like a traveler from a foreign country who runs into someone from home, someone they've never spoken to but know by sight, I recognized her with a surge of joy. Dad recognized her too. Spoiler alert, Allison and her father were both in the closet, but they were not in the closet together. My room was a closet for my family's clothes. My clothes were a closet for my skin. My skin is a closet for my skeleton. It won't always be. It won't always be this way, but that's not the same as it gets better. Better requires context. A shell could be a spent bullet or the home of a mollusk. In order to breathe, you have to add the little snail of an E to the end of the word breath. Breathe. Is it not amazing that we are still alive? It's nothing amazing, but in the closet is where I first read The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle. Marooned on Spider Monkey Island, the only way Tommy can go home is to climb inside the pink shell of the great glass sea snail. I lived in the closet, all wall, no window, so that if I turned out the light, it made no difference if I shut my eyes. That's how dark it got. I used to pretend I was Tommy inside the enormous shell, all window, no wall. But what was there to see at the bottom of the sea? Nothing except rare animals that learned under great pressure to make light from nothing but the nothing that they are. It was cold down there and lonely. My breath would fog the shell until I wiped it clear. But I climbed in when the great glass sea snail bowed its great neck to me and let me enter, hoping I had enough air, heading straight for whatever waited on the next shore, like any immigrant would. So I'm going to end there. That's poems from Thrown in the Throat. I have another reading tomorrow, so I'm going to leave that fifth poem out. But thank you so much for having me.
Benjamin, please put a link to your reading tomorrow in the chat in case anyone wants it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Just everybody, I don't know if you were watching the chat at all, but you have like 100 oofs and wows in there. And I'm sure that we will hear many more oofs and wows for our next poet, Kalista Bouken, whose debut full-length poetry collection, Look, 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 was published by Black Lawrence Press in October of last year. She's also the author of the chapbooks The Bloody Planet and Double Mouthed. Her poetry, prose, interviews, and reviews appear in literary journals including Harbor Palette, Puerto del Sol, 14 Hills, Poetry Daily, and others, while her collaborative writing with the poet Amy Ash appears in Boat, Poetry South, and Tahoma Literary Review. She's the 2019 winner of the CD Wright Conference Nan Snow Emerging Writer Award, as well as a Creative Arts Renewal Fellowship from the Arts Council of Indianapolis. She holds a PhD from the University of Kansas, an MFA from Bowling Green State University, and an MA from the University of Oregon. She teaches at Franklin College, where she directs the creative writing program and the Carlson Stouffer Visiting Writers Reading Series. Thank you so much for being here with us, Callista. We're excited to hear you read.
Thank you so much, Molly. I'm so thrilled to be here, so honored, so delighted to be a part of tonight. So thank you so much for having me. So I'm going to read some poems tonight from Look, 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 which celebrates its 1-year book birthday this week. So that makes it, I don't know, extra special. Thanks for that. The poems of this book came about because I had a baby and it was really scary. It was a big change for me and my life and who I thought I was and who I thought I wanted to be. And so I started writing these poems as a way to process that experience. So I'm going to start with this poem, which is about the strangeness of having been 2 people in one body to suddenly being 2 people in 2 separate bodies. Piece of Rough. The mother is relieved when the husband accompanies the daughter for the bath, when they take the daughter away to check and recheck her weight. In the room, the daughter's body is a balloon, body divided. The daughter needs all the air. The mother tells no one. The mother's body pushes towards some other shape, squeezing the loss, diamond-like, until the emptiness can be cut. The mother sets an alarm to remember to feed the daughter, another to look for more air. The mother stops speaking, tries to inhale less. All slender bruise, the daughter turns yellow. The husband changes her diapers, learns to swaddle her body in the receiving blankets. She yellows. The heel pricks begin. The husband goes with her, holds her slip of a body as she meows. In the empty room, the mother keeps her hands on her belly, tries to touch the daughter through the skin. This is Regeneration, and it's for all the women that were with me in breastfeeding support group. Woman, be permeable, be ocean, be habitat. Instead of woman, say starfish. Find a tide pool, new limbs in place of those you've lost, as if misplaced, as if not dead, as if not plucked from your body, as if not woman. Crawl away with what remains, sink, scale, absorb each place. Woman, cover your arms in starfish, wear them across your chest, latched into your hair, be invisible, be sea. Let the salt crack across your skin, cradle the water, what flows in and back, watch for reflexes. There will be enough love, enough everything, they say in support group. There will be enough. But woman, woman, keep track of your arms. So I have 2 children, but I also experienced a miscarriage in between their births. And so miscarriage was something that I wanted to address, to deal with. It's a thing I think we often don't talk about. And when we don't talk about something, it makes it seem like it's shameful instead of a thing that we can grieve about in community. So to talk about it in this book, I tried different things. Tried approaching it from sort of a surreal place. Tried approaching it by talking about myself in the 3rd person. So I'll read 2 poems now that are thinking about that. Road construction. A woman has commandeered all the traffic cones. No one knows where to drive, how to maneuver through holes where the intersection used to be. She keeps them in the basement and in her attic, stares at the reflective strips lining her bookshelves until she memorizes the hazards. She wants a new rocking chair. Less celebration than so much rubber or plastic, she calls out to the horns. I am all for the music, and turns her arms into cradles. Remnants. Each form she fills out asks for the number of pregnancies, the number of live births. Even at the optometrists, the numbers don't match. She reminds the husband to condition the brown leather couch to cover the bloodstains, but he runs out of cream, forgets to go to the store. They pretend the marks are lemonade, olive oil, pasta sauce. She is always spilling. The first child is always sticky with peanut butter. When the second child dies before he is born, before he had fingerprints, when he was a kidney bean or kumquat with webbed fingers, the third child becomes the second child. She pretends to have forgotten the thud and splash as she scrambled to the toilet, bleeding like a dog, the horrible, resolved decision to flush. The way when she first heard she felt better, how after she had nothing to hold. The third child, that is the second child, any day now. She smiles like people do when they say that. She thinks about the gray strings of tissue that took weeks to leave her body, the way something can die and be dead and not thought of for a long time, except how it changes the words, how you could read the future, study the tissue like tea leaves, and watch it change. So my daughter features in this next poem. She's 9 now, although she was younger here. And for a long time, her preferred name for me was Mother, which got me lots of weird glances at the grocery store. It wasn't my call. She's always been an old soul. So when she calls me Mother in this poem, that's because that's what she says. But this piece, for me, was about the moment when I realized that the cultural rules about gender were things that she was starting to internalize, and sort of the horror at that realization. To hide. She looks at me, face set, resisting the impulse to crumble. Already she knows which tears to hide, how to keep her eyes wide and press her lips together. My daughter, I think, kneeling before her as if she is an altar, whispering, "You are upset." How she finally chokes against my shoulder, how she wants permission to feel, or a place, a name for her pain, and a body that pretends strength, which promises to keep her whole. My daughter, I think later, as I sit on the lid of the toilet while her brother thrashes inside my belly, sobbing into a bath towel so they won't hear in the other room. All the broken bodies, the wet eyes of my mother, of her mother. I kneel, terry cloth in my mouth, but I don't know who is the prayer and who is the God. What am I supposed to promise? My mother, she is singing now, running at the door. Where is my mother? Illusion for a while. I put on the body, the permission while it lasts. So the next poem is the birth story of my son, which for the speaker of these poems is a real moment of starting to claim some agency, starting to feel more in control of the things that are happening. And this is how it happened. Release. I initial here and here, endorse the consent so I can get back to my body, as if the sun cares about letters, as if paperwork can contain this wave. My body has its own permission. The nurse wants me to lie down. I have been fully informed, the forms say. Indeed, this time I kneel on the bed, face the wall. I growl and bear, my body yawning as the sun slips out. The nurses surprised, the closest doctor pulled from the hallway, arms out and still shouting, "Do you intend to give birth in this position? Do you intend to give birth in this position?" This time, I look at the placenta. I look at the stained sheets. This time, I look at the baby. Even when I roll over, pull him to my chest, I am on my knees, always these days on my knees. The sun and I signed in blood. I have read and understand. I cut the cord myself. A little medical terminology in this next poem. It includes a reference to the linea nigra, which is the line down the abdomen from where abdominal muscles can separate during pregnancy. Most of the time they come back together, sometimes not so much. Linea nigra. This could be the poem about how the poem is the child and the child is the poem, but that would be bullshit. The dark line down my belly doesn't go away. What wants to be a lie or at least a myth but isn't, this place where my body split open for another body. The poem in that, I say to the midwife as she pokes my belly, feels the muscles that have separated, measures the distance between wrecked and whole. What a fucking metaphor, I tell the husband later, ignoring the surgery pamphlet on the table, the picture of a man and his needle, my hands at my belly button, holding my insides together. I am this splitting, the exhausted gap. I am scar, I am pieces, the body as the poem, what won't grow back. My kids were born in Kansas. Maybe some of you are in Kansas right now. I'm originally from Wisconsin, and we have bad weather in Wisconsin. There are tornadoes, there are thunderstorms, but we pay attention when they happen, not so much in Kansas. I was thinking a lot about tornadoes and the storms and what I could control and what I could not. So this is a poem about the vulnerability that I felt as a parent, about what it means to be in charge of keeping other people alive. Tornado. I insist on a safe room, something guaranteed to stand the wind. This is life on the prairie, I say. The men bring bolts, drive rebar through concrete. We make everything hard. The steel room out in the garage, loaded with gallons of water, the extra pairs of shoes, the threat. I know a mother who plans to tip the dryer over her children during a storm. What can I do, she says, and we all nod. The weather is easy enough. After the children are asleep, I make dinners for the week and freeze them. I refill the soap dispensers. I sort laundry as if I can hold back the threat. I curl against the tile floor in the kitchen and stay up late making lists, drawing maps. When I mistake the wind for a woman weeping, I wake the husband. Where can I get more steel? I ask him. My fingers on the baby's chest, counting breaths. And this will be the last one from me. Thank you so much. Taking care. I sit with my grief. I mother it. I hold its small, hot hand. I don't say, shh. I don't say, it is okay. I wait until it is done having feelings. Then we stand and we go wash the dishes. We crack open bedroom doors, step over the creaks, and kiss the children. We are sore from this grief, like we've returned from a run, like we are training for a marathon. I'm with you all the way, says my grief, whispering. And then we splash our face with water and stretch, one big shadow and one small. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Callista. I love the embodiedness of these poems that we're hearing tonight, like how much in the body everybody is. And also in conversation with that last poem Callista read, that idea of taking care and of being real about what grief is and what it looks like, and what, that pain and the fear of that. Earlier today, we had the honor of having a workshop with Leila Chatti, who walked us through some really intense feelings about fear. And we're going to hear from Leila next. So I'll tell you a little bit about her. She's a Tunisian-American poet and author of Deluge, which came out this year from Copper Canyon Press, and also the chapbooks Ebb and Tunisia America, which was the 2017 editor's selection from Bull City Press. Her honors include a Pushcart Prize, grants from the Barbara Deming Memorial Fund and the Helene Wurlitzer Foundation, and fellowships from the Fine Arts Works Center in Provincetown, the Wisconsin Institute for Creative Writing, and the Cleveland State University, where she was the inaugural Ainsfield Wolf Fellow in Publishing and Writing. She's currently pursuing a PhD in creative writing at the University of Cincinnati, where she's a provost fellow. Her poems have appeared in New York Times Magazine, Plowshares, Tin House, American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. And we'll put links in the chat to her website and her social media. Thank you so much for being here with us, Leila. I'm so excited to hear you read.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I apologize for my costume a little bit, but not entirely. I think there's not been enough joy this year, so I'm just I think I'm gonna try and keep this on. I don't know. I'm enjoying it. Halloween's my favorite holiday. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is great. This is the way I want to spend my Halloween. So I'm gonna be reading pretty much straight through from my book, and which I rather resemble, I think, at the moment a little bit. I don't really think there's too much for content warning, but there is one poem that sort of alludes towards violence towards women a little bit. Okay, I'm just gonna jump in. This is an experience. Okay. Confession. And there's an epigraph for this poem. It's from when Mary is giving birth to Jesus in the Quran. And she says, "Oh, I wish I had died before this and was in oblivion, forgotten. Truth be told, I like Mary a little better when I imagine her like this, crouched and cursing, a boy god pushing on her cervix. I like remembering she had a cervix, her body ordinary and so like mine. Girl sweat lacing rivulets like veins in the sand, her small hands on her knees, not doves, but hands, gripping, the palm pressed to her spine, fronds whispering like warriors overhead. Oh, Mary, like a god, I too take pleasure in knowing you were not all holy, that ache could undo you like a knot. And suffering, I admire this girl who cared for a moment not about God or his plans, but her own distinct life. This fiercer Mary who disappear if it saved her, would howl to hell with salvation if it meant this pain. The blessed adolescent who squatted indignant in a desert, bearing his child like a secret she never wanted to hear. Annunciation. At the bedside, robed in white, a white blaze above a hum of light like a supernal language, a dove in the dark bell of my threshold, pain pealing like a Sunday, the attending announcing shadow, widening the dove's steely beak, a bit of pressure, a sharp pinch, in view on the screen apparitions, black halos, black seas void of boats or divinity. They're speaking now. They are trying their best to appear human, so I won't startle, leave. But what they have to tell me, I don't want to receive. The word only incarnate once it slipped in her sleep. Mary speaks. And what could I say when he entered? Rude as a dream, bare flame of a man with wings and demands not his own. I'd been raised a good girl to house my tongue in my mouth, to be hospitable toward strangers, suspicious of no one. Perhaps I'd have been better off to be wary, but I'd been waiting so long to hear God speak, I hadn't thought to think of what he might tell me. Sarcoma. When the doctor says the word sarcoma, I consider how it might be a nice name for a daughter, that good feminine A, the way parents name their children for all sorts of inappropriate things. Apples, for instance, or the place where the baby was conceived. And I trace my fingers over the barrel of my belly as he speaks, flesh distended beneath the blue tissue I wear for a dress, an ideal grief frock, throwaway. And he says something about life expectancy, but of course I expect my life. So plain I thought nothing would ever take it. And while he explains, I cut my palms around my center, as if comforting a child, or covering her ears. Litany while reading scripture in the gynecologic oncology waiting room. And God said, let there be blood. And God said, flood. And God said, good is a woman with fruit in her womb and not in her hand. And God said, sin. And God did not say, forgive. And God said, I will make a stormy wind. And God said, sun, a breath stirring. And God said, highly favored. And God said, condemned. And God said, I will blot out men whom I have created, for I am sorry that I have made them. And God said, listen, and sank a boy in her like a stone. Mother, if you had asked me, 13, what I wanted to be one day, I wouldn't have said it. I wanted, for a long time, to be anything but myself, knew that a soon-to-be woman was the second worst thing in the world after a woman, full stop, and I was heading there fast. I could see it, my breasts rudely nudging into view, their snug caps like the knit caps of infants, rosy-colored as a tongue. And how terrifying, the thought of a mouth there rooting and what could be drawn from me that I didn't need. What else skulked in me unseen, stirring in secret vats with milk yet untapped and blood, the strange new wellspring? I was just beginning to understand the possibilities, my body's elusive independent workings, machineries chugging away in dark chambers, not just left to, but simply their own devices, unknowable and sovereign. What I wanted always to be, in control. And I knew this was impossible, just as I knew, even then, that to be a mother was to be the only permissible form of a woman, the begrudging exception to the rule of our worthlessness. So if you asked me again, 23, I tell you the worst thing you could be is not a woman, but barren, the industry shut down and the parts missing, malformed. And I tell you the shame of it, the feminine failure, its ache, a reminder. At the center, the tumor, ballooning, like hope. Angel. After a month of asking, suddenly a voice. It says you deserve that which has happened to you. It says, I see what you do with your long, terrene hands. Maundering through the banalities of my life, it follows, speaking, as if from a frosty bag of peas in the freezer aisle, speaking, while I am on my knees, scrubbing the bathroom floor, trying to love a man. Its speech is disquieting company, but company nonetheless. A TV left on and turned low. It desperately wants my attention, but is polite, which is its defining weakness. Sometimes I catch it stirring out of the corner of my eye. A glint at the end of my cat's whiskers, a spangle on the ceiling of indiscernible source. More often, though, it looks like me, only a little off, like my reflection in the pregnant belly of a spoon. In fact, when I speak to it, I use my own name. I'm not sure if it minds. It repeats instead its refrain. It says, God has plans for you. It says, I didn't say they were good. Hymen. Second blood, I never knew you. After the first, scoured the bed for your blazoned blot and came up empty. Perhaps I was born without you. A box with no prize inside, a sundae with no cherry on top. God of good girls, God of matrimony, mother state, which I consider a distant country with a discordant tongue. Did you speak with God and conclude I hadn't use for you? Once I was small as your kin, so small and for such a long time, longer than I've lived. I fit inside my mother when she fit inside her mother, and so on and so forth and further. A nest of matrons, knees and a beam in which to be female is to be something like infinity. And was it determined then what kind of woman I would be? It seems I've always been frightened, little veil, of wedlock's lock, clicking shut. The heritable procession of women whispering in the aisle of my pulse, don't do, don't do, don't. And I haven't done. This the gravamen, the grave I've dug with the spade of pleasure. But wanting seal of want, I did wanted, did choose to commit my life's greatest transgression with a benevolent accomplice. And so in the here before, you could say I'm among the spared. What a mess this messlessness of you could have been in any number of lives my size, billowing specters of dresses on a line of possibility. Lives in which I am the bridesmaid and you, maidenhead, the bride given away, where I am the acquired property and you, the red ribbon severed in the threshold, I, the purse, and you, the coin tendered. Perhaps no one ever told you, precious emblem of innocence, simulacrum for honor, that some believe you the most important part of me, vital, like a heart a man gets the thrill of bursting where he can see it, that blood is owed to him. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? Of a woman, you, the only blood worth anything. So this next poem is called Haemerhoisa, which is the old Greek term for the woman with the issue of blood if you went to Sunday school in the Bible. Did she, like me, lose years of nights, up at an ungodly hour, washing the sheets? She must have been very tired. She must have been ashamed, waking again to a stain in the bed, still warm like a lover just risen, dayspring seeping over the weedy yard outside. She likely had once a husband, but not long, not after. Because no one touched her, she must have touched herself. She must have known a woman could die from living untouched and preferred to be satisfied. Her red hands turning slowly and brightly like fish under a faucet in the back of the quiet, lonesome house. Sometimes I'm sure she thought her life was all right. She ate, when available, the foods she liked best and moved her chair while reading to the sunniest spot. She presumably prayed for some time, then decided to move on to more fruitful endeavors, like grooming her eyebrows or organizing the kitchen drawer. Always a mess. I'm sure she enjoyed a good joke. Occasionally had trouble with self-esteem, generosity. She was the kind to need and need like me endlessly. So when one day that God walked by, all boyish good looks and not looking her way, she didn't for a moment hesitate. She did what I couldn't do. A miracle within reach. She took it. Okay. Questions directed toward the idea of Mary. Was it the voice you feared, or its shadow? Did you long for his touch, or was suffering enough for you to know he was there? Do you resent me, my juvenile hungers? Do you wish for me the freedom of a vast, barren plain? What would you have done with your body if your body obliged? Did it please you, your sun risen at the end, like a question? Do you pity the angels, their ancillary lives? Did your worship falter once you were sure you were good? How long did you live before yielding to your inevitable shame? And how long before you realized? Did you realize? Shame was a blade you turned against yourself. And once you knew it, you could use it. And this is my last poem. Thank you so much for having me and listening, spending this night together. This poem is called Exegesis. I bled. God didn't want to hear about it. He said unclean, and so it was. He said it is harm, and so it was. Want to hear about it? He said unclean. Once A woman wanted, so he did her harm. And so it was first conceived, a woman suffering because a woman wanted. So he said, cursed, and then he said, blessed. The woman chose to suffer, conceived a God, though she never knew a man. And God knows best. If he calls a curse a blessing, then so it is. And he said she was clean. She never knew a man. I've known men, but never a God that bled and lived. But I did. Thank you so much.
Leila. Oh my God. Sorry, my dog has decided this is playtime, so just taking various squeaky toys away. Leila, all of those poems just killed me, and also I love the commitment of reading these like beautiful, serious poems in that ghost costume. Thank you for that joy. Benjamin just said in the chat, haunting, pun/no pun. Indeed. So we just have one more poet tonight. We're really grateful to all of you for being here. Check in the chat and in the access document for links to everybody's books, and please buy them. It's just such a gorgeous thing to hear all of these voices in concert with one another.